Welcome to Derech Eretz with me, your host, Romy Stach. Jewish tradition teaches us that we should care for the environment. This we see from Genesis, that God placed Adam in the Garden of Eden to work it and to guard it, thus implying that man should not spoil and destroy God's world. For if we do, there will be no one else to repair it. Rabbi Liebenberg elaborates further.
One of the buzzwords of the 21st century is sustainability. We have to make sure that what we do today has an impact on tomorrow, and that the behavior that we inculcate in our children is not negative and will not have a negative impact on the world to come. But what is sustainability? And how does Judaism view sustainability? Is there such a concept in the Bible? I think that there is, and let's start right at the beginning in the book of Genesis. The Bible describes how God created the world, an absolutely beautiful world with all different types of creatures, millions of creatures, different types of fauna and flora. And then the human being is created. And the human being is incredible. The human being shares with his creator the ability to improve upon the created world. But of course, the human being is also problematic. The human being has his own mind, his own thinking, and he can cause a great deal of damage. And the Bible tells us that God took that first human being, Adam, placed him in the garden, and the Hebrew words that are used are la'ovda u'lashomra. La'ovda means to work the garden, u'lashomra, and to protect the garden. And these are two major focus points that God wants humanity to get involved in. First of all, la'ovda. I want you to work the world. I gave you the world in its rawest form. You have an intellect. Use your intellect to improve the world. You don't have to leave it as it is. You can build bridges and skyscrapers and modes of transport and modes of energy. Go ahead and do it. That's perfectly okay. That's what it means la'ovda. I want you to perfect. I want you to work the world. But then there's a caveat. U'lashomro. Protect it. And the Midrash, the ancient Jewish teaching, explains that God said to Adam, I'm giving you a beautiful, beautiful world, but you need to protect it, because through your actions you can destroy it. And boy, have we seen how human beings have engaged in the most destructive acts through war, through irresponsibility, through greed. So right at the beginning of the whole civilization of the world, God gives us these two important roles. I want you to work the world, but I also want you to guard the world. How do we go about guarding the world? Well, let's start with a very, very important verse in the book of Deuteronomy. There the Bible is describing a situation where two armies are at war with one another. One particular army, one nation is in a city, and the other army is coming and they are besieging that city. So, of course, naturally, the first thing that they do is they look for material. How are we going to build all of these things we need, these siege engines, to go against the city? Well, naturally, what they'll do is they'll go to the nearest forest and they'll cut down trees. And it's precisely at that point that the Bible says, Lo tashrit, you are not allowed to go to a fruit-bearing tree and to destroy it. Because is a tree a soldier that is against you in battle? No. It's part of the environment. And I don't want you to destroy the environment. If it's a tree that doesn't produce fruit, you can cut it down and you can use it. But if it's something that produces fruit, if it's of benefit to civilization and society, why should you destroy it? This is actually one of the prohibitions in Judaism, known as Bal Tashrit. We're not allowed to destroy something. If something still has value, we're not allowed to go ahead and destroy that item. And we live in such a throwaway society. We get something, we use it for a year, we throw it away. That wasn't how the previous generation thought of things. They would buy something, they would keep it for life. We live in a throwaway society. Comes along the Bible and says, Bal Tashrit, don't destroy. Don't be involved in wanton destruction. And this is not just the environment, this is anything that we have. This world is precious and there is no plan B. If we use it up, it's destroyed. And it's through our actual efforts and actions that God makes sure that we live in a good environment. For example, it says in the Bible that if we act properly and we are ethical people, God will bring the rains. If we're unethical, the rains will not come. And perhaps that's what's happening today with climate change. We see that people are acting in such a wasteful manner, in such an unethical manner, that there's no rainfall, there's not sufficient rainfall. This is a terrible tragedy. So the Bible goes to the heart of what it means sustainability. Work the world, perfect the world, but ulashomra, you must guard the world. It is the only planet that we have.
Derech Eretz. Derech Eretz.
Cheryl Ozinski, Kurt Ackerman, and a group of volunteers have transformed a neglected bowling green into a shining example of organic urban agriculture. In the process, they have returned the area to its lost heritage.
What prompted me to start the farm was that about 12 years ago I moved into this neighborhood and I had high expectations. I thought I would make friends easily. I thought there would be a sense of community and that people knew each other here. But one Sunday morning I was attacked together with my partner in my home. That was shortly after we moved into the area. And I began to ask questions after that incident happened to us. Then I realized that I couldn't put my head in a hole. I had to do something about it, even though I was very busy. And I got a few people together and we helped to start a neighborhood watch. After 6 years of building that structure, I realized that that was the beginning to building community. It wasn't the end. Because once a community feels relatively safe, there are other things that then one can do to bring them out, to inspire them, to capture their imagination. And there is nothing better than food to bring people together. And so we thought, what if we plant a community garden here? We talk to kids about nutrition, we talk to them about the provenance of their food, we have workshops here, we bring kids from all over Cape Town. We get our community out, we get them to volunteer in the garden, and we ask the city if they will let us have this space. And that's what happened.
So we started with a piece of ground that was available and a qualified, experienced organic farmer. So it was always going to be organic veggies because we knew how and there was that energy. And we really didn't know what we were doing in terms of long-term strategic vision. We knew that establishing a community food garden that would bring people together was something that was going to have positive benefits. And we were all working as volunteers and getting support. So we rolled with it.
So volunteers really are the backbone and help us in many ways. It's an NGO at the end of the day, a non-profit, and we don't have the means to run this on our own. And our farmers give them guidance and direction, and yeah, they become part of the Oranjezicht makeup.
It's lovely to give back and do some service work and be out, and this is a lovely place to just work with the plants, clean some leaks, just having some downtime with ourselves, yeah.
There is some volunteers, they come here, they got depression, they got more stress, so they want to be out of their house or something. They come here to just to work with the plants.
We also have schools, we teach kids how to do farming because most of the kids, they believe when you want carrots, you must go to Checkers. That's where the carrots come from. So we try to bring them in the farm so that they can see where it is coming from and how it grows from the baby.
People come here for very different reasons, and it is only when one engages with them that one realizes, you know, the healing power of a place like this, but also we have a grand opportunity to teach people about the food system and obviously to grow in confidence to grow their own fresh produce.
I started learning about doing agriculture, like doing organic farming and learning about growing the stuff without using any chemicals, only compost. That's what we grow up in Zimbabwe, using fertilizers and spraying with the chemicals, killing every weeds. But what we don't know is, like, those weeds, they got more natural thing, what they can feed your plants.
Conventional agriculture is not necessarily bad if you're buying fresh, local. Some of the problems with food comes when it's traveled a long way. So those beautiful red tomatoes that you get at the wrong time of year were grown and harvested green because they're firm and they're perfectly shaped and they don't bruise and they don't cut. Then they're transported to a warehouse, and in some space they're then gassed with ethylene to change the color to red so they look lovely, but they're actually not ripe. And that's why they don't taste like anything. So consumer education is the essential. Buying food that tastes great is the fundamental test. But most of the food that winds up on our shelves is grown so that it looks great and commands a high price in the shop. And those are very different goals. So the consumer, it's up to us to really educate ourselves and one another about how to make good food choices.
And then this beautiful, beautiful verbena.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, the verbena is amazing.
Yeah. No, it's super exciting.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
We also at the farm have a weekly veg box that also has a strong educational component. And that's another way of being in touch with what's fresh, local, and seasonal. Because when you buy one of those boxes, you buy in advance. You don't know exactly what's going to be in it, but you know that it's what's seasonal. And each week you get what you get. And that's where the grocery stores have done a wonderful job of catering to our desires, but at tremendous cost in many cases. So there's got to be a balance between eating what you like, and sometimes, having something a bit special is fine. But if the day-to-day, week-to-week food is what's local, seasonal, and fresh, then by and large, you'll be doing well for yourself as well as for the farmers and for the local economy.
On a harvest day, our farmers usually start at 7:30 in summer. And we've got an availability list of what we can harvest that day. And they'll split up the responsibility. So some will do green beans, some will do the spinach, some will do the kale, some will do the leeks, depending what's available. That then gets brought back under the pergola, which is this area here. The produce gets cleaned and bunched. I then just style the veg for our customers, and we have ladies that will want to come and get a bunch of spinach or a bunch of beetroot. We have all types.
Six years later, we have this market as well now at the Granger Bay site in the waterfront. And the market is responsible for 20 people's jobs directly and about 250 indirectly of our traders. We attract on a Saturday, Sunday about 8,000 people or more every weekend. We sell a lot of fruit and vegetables from 28 farmers who grow organically, some of which is supplied by this farm, but we have another 27 farmers who supply the market every week. When we started, we had no farmers growing organically, so just by buying every week and building these farmers and loaning them equipment and money if they need it, we've helped to build an alternative food system in South Africa, in Cape Town especially. So imagine if we could impact on nutrition with all these projects. Imagine if people were eating healthy food. Imagine how they would be able to look after themselves better, and what impact we would also create on community, because what we've seen when people come together, they solve problems. And so we've found that by bringing people together, things in the neighborhood get talked about and for the most part resolved. I think that Derech Eretz here, if I understand what Derech Eretz is, it's the way of the land, it's the way of the world, it's the way why we get up in the morning and we make things happen, it's our passion. I think what we've learned is that you can make a difference. Every single individual, each one of us has something special that we can give back. And if we're living in South Africa today, with all the challenges and all the beauty around us, we have to give something back, because that's where meaning comes. And we see people change. People who interact with us, people who work here, people who come into contact with our market. We see that they're different, they're happy. And it's lovely to see happy people.
Derech Eretz. Derech Eretz.
Seedpod is a podcast dedicated to those South Africans shaping the country through entrepreneurship and sustainability. Entrepreneur Lee Rael is doing just that by having authentic conversations with talented creatives, innovative entrepreneurs, and environmental pioneers.
So I've been listening to podcasts for a long time, and all of them are from America. And so in my office, I started having conversations with the people around me saying, I'd love to start a podcast. And I never did anything about it, but I got to a point where I was actually feeling frustrated, and I felt like I wanted to do something that was mine, and it was not dependent on anyone else for feedback or input or anything, and something that I could control. And so I just said one day, I'm just going to do it, and I started. How long were you involved with Greenpeace for?
I worked there for 6.5 years in total, for 3.5 years at the international headquarters in Amsterdam, and then for 3 years at Greenpeace Africa.
I had my daughter 10 years ago, and bringing a child into the world, I started thinking about what my impact on the world is and what kind of world I'm going to be leaving her. And also, particularly with climate change, I don't want to be in a place 20 years down the line when things are getting worse and my children ask me, but Dad, you knew that things were bad and you didn't do anything. Or what did you do when you could have done something? At the end of the day, I think the core of it is that I feel like I want to make a difference with what I do every day. Otherwise, it lacks purpose and meaning for me. So I want to go home at the end of the day and feel like in some small, tiny little way I contributed positively to the world. I think that's the crux of it. Are you largely desk-based as an organization? Do you have people on the front line doing any campaigns, getting properly active on the street?
We spend a lot of time talking to people. Organizing and building a movement requires that. So we're out on the, on the street and in people's homes and in community halls and things like that. Organizing and getting people active and supporting people when they take action.
When choosing a guest, sometimes I know them already. They're in my circle of influence in some way. Or I come across an article online and I see something written about them and it sparks my interest, and then I'll do a bit of research. I might have a phone call, or I might actually meet them, have a little conversation around what we might talk about. And then the conversation, it's generally around an hour, sometimes more, and it's a free-flowing conversation, exploring their journey, their story, and their message.
This morning we had Glenn on Seedpod, and we were talking about climate change and how we only have like 12 years to fix our mess on this earth. So yeah, it had some hope, but we have to work hard.
350.org. We're a global climate organization that tries to ignite a global climate movement. So we support and empower people to get active on climate change. We're present in 188 countries, so across the globe, and often supporting volunteers and groups in those countries to take action on climate change. And the 350 in our name refers to the safe level of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. So to avoid catastrophic climate change, we need to keep carbon dioxide below 350 parts per million of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere.
I'm inspired by people who themselves are making a difference in some way, or people who are challenging the status quo, people who are doing things differently and questioning the way that we do things in the world in order to make it better.
Lee is getting some interesting stories out of the people he's interviewing. It's interesting how what his belief and his thing about sustainability and environmental things, how other people are also involved in that, and how everyone is doing their own thing and their own stories and their own background in trying to contribute and their experiences.
I think stories are important in today's society because we live in a world where everything's about instant gratification, and with social media everything's dumbed down. It's hard to know who to trust in the media. I struggle to trust what's being said in the media, and everything's very quick. So on Twitter's only 120 characters, Facebook feeds are just flipped through. No one's really engaging with real content, and I think the podcasts help people engage on a much deeper level, which we don't see anywhere else. It's almost like a lost art form, is that deep conversation, deep storytelling.
The benefit of podcasts is you can find your exact niche audience and you can speak to them directly. Whereas a radio station is a lot more general and a lot more broad, and you have to cater for the general audience. Whereas you can find exactly what you are interested in and that you want to hear, and topics about, discussions about. So I think if you find your audience, it's incredibly powerful, because you would either connect or not connect to your audience quite soon. And those that stick would become lifelong fans, I think.
What I love about the podcast is that it's a moment where I can do something that I love, and there's no end purpose to it. There's no client telling me I need this done in this time frame with this budget. It's a real connection with another human being, because that's the other thing that I really enjoy, is I enjoy connecting with other people. The highlights of my days are often moments with people, and here I get a real deep hour with somebody, and I grow as a person from each one. So for me, Derech Eretz is about the journey of one's life and the decisions one makes on that journey, that they align with who you are as a person. So for me, the work that I do, the people that I speak to on my podcast, they align with my values and who I am as a person.
Psychoanalyst Anna Freud said, "We are only aware of the empty space in the forest, which only yesterday was filled with trees." If you have missed any of our previous shows, why not click onto our YouTube channel, Derech Eretz Connect, and watch some of our amazing stories. From me, Romy Stach, and the Derech Eretz team, are you raising awareness of the environmental issues in your city or town?